Everyone, what's up? Welcome back to the Winter Season Showdowns. I'm axeltoss, joined by axslav. You're currently watching a best of 5 between Taeja and Violet. Game 1 was pretty epic. Taeja showing relentless aggression, converting himself a victory. Before we get into game number 2, though, Full Sail University, if you're looking to get into graphic design, game design, animation, audio engineering, anything of the sort, anything related to the gaming industry, look no further than fullsail.edu/MLG. Check it out, see if you like what you're looking at, and then of course you send them some information, they'll get some information right back at you, and then you can find out if Full Sail is the proper fit for you. Of course, Full Sail University is the official education partner of MLG, so I urge you to check that out and see if you like it. That being said,
Let's do it.
Game 2. Let's
Game
do it.
2, man.
Go.
You know, in that first game, as we're starting the second game, the first game, the strategy Taeja used, the way you counter that as a Zerg player is you have to crush one army completely enough that Terran then has to sit back before they can rebuild, because it can't rally units at you unless those units are joining up with the army. So if you crush it, but he never was able to do that. Every battle, even if it looked like he would win the battle, Taeja was able to escape with some of his units. He was able to basically trade with the Zerg. And Terran, most of the time in the mid-game, is going to have stronger economy than the Zerg. So if you're just constantly trading money for money, I mean, the Terran's eventually going to just overwhelm you, which is what we saw last game. You have to crush your army, then you have this space you can expand, get your tech up, and progress to that late game.
Yeah, two things I think Violet could have done better there potentially to help him convert to victory, and feel free to disagree. His creep spread never really got going. And if he had creep spread there, like even just to the watchtower, that would have been instrumental in helping him hold off that aggression that was shown from Taeja. Another thing that he could have potentially tried was send a squad of Lings to either counterattack or try to cut off the reinforcing Marines. Because if you can cut off the reinforcing Marines, then you can have that, you can even flank the existing army from Taeja and get that convincing battle you were talking about. Of course, that was in Game 1. This is Game 2. Let me introduce the players really quickly. In the bottom left-hand location of Daybreak, we have the red Terran player from Team Liquid. He is Taeja. His opponent in the top right-hand location, the green Zerg player from Team Azubu, currently down 1-0, has some work to do. He is Violet.
Your point about, Violet using that mobility to really interrupt Taeja's economy and his reinforcement, his, logistical supply line, is a really good point, because he spent so much money on that Mulus force. But right when it came out, he never had an opportunity to really send him across and make Taeja worry about his own defenses and kind of cut into him that way. Perhaps if Violet could have gotten a chance to get his mutas across the map, it would have given him the space to spread to creep and to progress. But the mutas just didn't really do anything that last game.
No.
In a straight-on engagement, they're just not worth the money.
Yeah, especially with the the regen options and their increase in speed. The idea is, like, right when they pop out, let's send them across the map and see what kind of damage we can get done. Unfortunately, Violet, he was just too pressured that entire game to really even think about sending the mutas anywhere else, because he needed them basically to stay alive against that aggression from Taeja. So we'll see what happens in game number 2 here. And we saw that Violet wasn't able to scout out that barracks. We saw Taeja actually put it in the top right-hand side of the main. So how is that going to change things here? I mean, obviously Taeja put that there for a reason.
He did. I mean, the whole goal was, last game he proxied 2 racks. If Violet doesn't see command center first, he doesn't see a barracks, he might get a few more Zerglings than he'd otherwise want to. If he opens with 8 Zerglings against a Terran who's expanding quickly, he'll be a little bit, behind in economy. But the Overlord did see the Marine shoot at him, so he knows there was a barracks placed somewhere in the main. I think Violet has a pretty good idea of the way the game's going.
Yeah. Olin's going to be pursuing this SCV back home. The SCV should make it. Of course, we have a couple reinforcing Marines here to potentially try to cut off the Lings. What Taeja could potentially do here is bring the SCV to the watchtower, and the Lings won't be able to react because of the smoke. Oh, the Marine's just going to come out here and try to cut him off. He's going to get one. Not bad.
Yeah, not bad. The Zerglings paying for their
first blood.
Bloodthirsty ways. That's right. Marines get the first blood there. They tried it first on the Overlord, didn't quite get it. Overlord was able to sneak away there. He's waiting to see, poke back in again a little bit later and see exactly what Taeja's up to. But they did get that Zergling kill. Taeja, meanwhile, went straight double gas after his expansion. So, the factory's being built. I think we're going to see mech play here. I'm not positive, but Daybreak's a great map for mech against Zerg. It's very easy to kind of get your 4 bases, all your gas going on. And we saw that last game. Taeja felt very comfortable with some of these new mech units. I mean, he went 3 factories. And in Wings of Liberty, 3 factories would mean, oh, he's going to get a lot of tanks and do a giant 200 food push with like 10 siege tanks. But in Heart of the Swarm, it seemed that Taeja says it could mean that. It also could mean I just want to rally in a ton of Hellbats and Widowmines to help out my my aggression force. We see that right now. Both a Hellion and a Widowmine and a second factory all in production.
Nice. Of course, he's definitely going to be investing a lot into the mech type play, and the Widowmines and Hellbats are so instrumental in that last game. I mean, just having one Widowmine burrowed near his army, it did so much damage to Lings, Banelings, even Mutas as that game went along, and that's something that's kind of hard to deal with as a Zerg player. Violet's already dealing with so many other things, and that's just, he has to get an Overseer out to potentially snipe them when there's a bunch of Marines and Marauders around, and of course Hellbat. So very nice play there from Taeja, and we'll have to see how he utilizes these units in this game, sending the Widowmine scuttling across the field. And if we're talking about things that can deal with the Widowmine at this point in the game, there's not much. I mean, a Queen has to get shot if he tries to get in range. We talked about earlier, the Roach is probably the best option. Send one Roach to absorb the damage, get an Overseer out, and then kill it. But the lair just now started, so Violet has no way of seeing these Widowmines right now.
He has no idea, and the whole goal here is, they can be used in combination with the Hellions to really put the hurt on a Zerg player. The Marine's going to deny these creep tumors, and if the Queens try to come down, that's where the Widowmine comes into play. One shot will hurt a Queen significantly. Oh, there we go. And then if he can finish it off with the Hellions, or just force him to use energy on transfusions as opposed to creep tumors and injections.
Behind this, Taeja adding on 2 engineering bays. Stim has started up a Hellions trying to sneak up into the natural expansion. The Queens, though, all have plenty of health there because of that transfuse ability, and the Hellion getting very low in health. Meanwhile, Violet adding on 5 Roaches. Layer's about to complete. He's got +1 missile attacks on the way, as well as the Carapace upgrade. So looks like Taeja wants to, Violet wants to go for a Roach type composition, perhaps supplemented by Hydras a little bit later, and maybe even Vipers a little bit later than that.
This is something I've seen a lot in Heart of the Swarm, the Roach-based TVZ play, even the Roach Hydra. It sounds kind of weird, but it can actually work with the greater mobility Hydras now have, and the main counter to a Mass Roach Hydra army is a significant siege tank count. That's where, like you mentioned, those Vipers come into play. Blinding Cloud is so effective against siege tanks because they can't easily get out of the cloud. They have to unsiege first, and then, of course, they'll be taken out. Not to mention, in fact, you can use Abduct as well to pick off some of their numbers.
Yeah, of course, one of the more fun Heart of the Swarm spells to watch. Seeing something pulled by Vipers is a lot of fun. Perhaps we'll get to see that in this game. Taeja doing a great job denying the creep. I mean, that's something we talked about in the last game, and Widowmine's finally going to be taken out here by Queens and Roaches. Hellions actually going to make their way into the third, just trying to deny this creep as much as possible. And I think that's great. Of course, we saw how much that helped in the last game. So Taeja going for the same sort of play. 1-1's about to finish, adding on tanks, but there's that Hydrogen in production for Violet, and there's a bunch of drones as well. So setting up for the mid to late game. Might do a little bit of Roach aggression here, though.
I really like how flexible Taeja is with his factory usage, of course, scouting his opponent. Last game, he pumped out Hellbats and Widowmines. This game, he sees Roaches and says, you know what, I need those siege tanks. Hellbats there in the front of tanks, siege tanks behind. Yeah. There's no way Violet can really get near to do damage. Perhaps he can get around and maybe force a third to lift. That could be a potential move. He does have the Roach move speed, so he can't outmaneuver Hellions. Siege tanks are still being produced. They aren't quite out there in relevant numbers. Oh, a nice little hit there with the Widowmine, but it is going to be taken out.
Took down a drone, so going to delay that potential 4th base for a little bit. But Roach is going to return here and take those out. And now Violet can finally start spreading that creep as much as he wants. Taeja, though, again, accumulating a pretty ferocious army. He has a lot of Marines, Hellbats, a lot of tanks as well. But now we're seeing Violet incorporating those Hydralisks. 2-2 is on the way. Upgrades are fairly similar for these two guys. Something we're definitely going to have to watch as this goes along. But he's not researching +1 armor, it seems.
Or +2 armor.
Excuse
me. Yeah, he's already at 1-1. I think when he tried to click on that when he was getting the attack upgrade, but just didn't have the money.
There we go.
Just now realizing that it didn't actually get underway. He's also been cutting his tank production. Of course, he's very gas drained right now, just now getting that 5th and 6th gas going. With double E-bays trying to keep up a medevac production and all your upgrades, it's not so easy to constantly construct tanks out of 2 factories, so he's going back and adding some Hellions because they're very useful. I mean, you turn them into Hellbats. They're, I would say, the best tanking unit in the game overall because of the way the armor type, and they don't clump too much. They're pretty good against splash damage as well. Very, very useful against Roach Hydra competition to help buffer for your more important damaging units, the Marines and the Siege.
And of course, they only cost minerals, so the whole idea behind saving up that gas does apply there. We have a Hellbat drop in the main base of Violet, and now we're going to see a lot of destruction to these drones, as Violet hastily trying to get those out of there to keep them alive. The Hydras and Roaches coming forward here to potentially deal with this, and Taeja is just going to zip out of there. Nice play there from Taeja.
Yeah, I mean, always a great move. They're using Ignite Afterburners to make sure those Hydras don't pick off that medevac. Violet leaving a couple of his units here in his main to make sure that medevac cannot come back in and haunt him again. Taeja is going to just continue to build up his forces, producing Hellbats 4 at a time now. Double reactors on his factories, saying, you know what, tanks are fun for defense, but I really want to get a lot of Hellbats mixed into my army for the offensive purposes. Violet's going to Hives. We may see those Vipers come into action. Taeja, though, I think he might attack before any of those really powerful Zerg units can come into play here, moving out across the bottom of the map with a sizable force.
We also have a medevac at the top, so I might ask you to watch that in case we need to do some picture-in-picture engagement. Going to happen at the bottom side of the map. Marines, Hellbats, Marauders, and tanks going to be engaging the Roaches and Hydras from Violet. At the same time, we got a drop in Violet's main base. Looks like that got cleaned up by Hydras that were there.
Very, very smart play of Violet, keeping those two Hydras there in the main to knock out that medevac before it could get anywhere close. And you know, Violet's doing a pretty good job of stalling off this attack as well.
Yeah.
Taeja's goal, though, actually I think was successful. He traded off most of his units that are easy to replace, the Bio and the Hellbats. Oh, two medevacs almost running into the Hydralis. On the creep, the Hydras are faster. Ignite Afterburners is still on cooldown. Oh
no, one medevac getting taken out for free. Violet is going to be happy, and I think he's going to go to Viper. Yeah, they're the Vipers. He made 4 engineering bays, or look at all these Evo chambers. Why would a Zerg player make that many Evo chambers?
Just for the Viper consumability.
For the consume.
Yeah. That's something I've seen a lot of the Zerg players do on the ladder. Yep. Of course, Evo Chamber is the cheapest building to life to cost ratio of all the Zerg buildings. Only 75 minerals plus, of course, the cost of the drone. For 750 life, that can translate into a lot of Viper energy.
Yep, of course. For those of you who don't know, the Viper, the consume ability allows them to gain additional energy by sucking the life out of their own structures, of course. Interestingly enough, sucking the life off of the Evo Chamber that's actually doing work for them and not one of the other ones. But as long as it doesn't die, I guess it's fine.
Yeah, it would be quite a mistake if he accidentally killed that one, interrupted his upgrade.
There we go. He switched it over. He's like, wait a second, I don't want to kill that one.
Taeja still trying to work those Hellbat drops on the bottom right, being denied though. Meanwhile, moving out with a large army across the middle.
Coming to the middle of the map, trying to deny this additional hatchery from going down. And here come the Vipers from Violet. And again, once the Blinding Cloud is there, but it's being worked against him right here, as the Hydras and the Roaches, once they go in there, they lose the ability for that range as well. Very confusing battle happening here, as each unit is switching between having range and not having range due to that Blinding Cloud. But at the end of it all, I think Violet's going to be the happier one.
I think he is, although this Hellbat drop in his third may turn things around a bit. A lot of drones starting to go down here. Of course, the medevac is too hurt to come back in there. Hellbats are taken out, but it's giving Taeja an opportunity to move his army back here. Coming across the middle, he's going to focus that hatchery down.
He's going to get it.
He's going to get it.
Oh my gosh, he left about a split second too early. Violet coming forward here with the Roaches and the Hydras. He has Blinding Cloud. There it goes, which means Marinas and Marauders can't shoot. And now Violet going to run into them on his own. But Taeja is on the full retreat. 7 more Hydras being added in here by Violet. 3-3 is about to finish. Are all the drops off the map? I'm assuming they are. But another big engagement going to happen here. Vipers are out of energy, so they're going to have to retreat back a little bit. But can anything stop this ferocious Roach Hydra army here from Violet? It's actually pretty close. I think Taeja should be able to hold this off, and Violet's going to have to retreat.
He could be. We could tell a difference. That battle without Blinding Cloud, the Roach Hydras get absolutely melted by the
You got to be careful with that. Yeah, when I learned that, I was a little bit surprised how they affect both sides. They affect the Zerg player. If you run into your own Blinding Cloud, your units will lose that range. So you got to be really careful with that. And of course, your opponent can take advantage of that by kiting backwards and forcing you to run into your own Blinding Cloud. So we're seeing that in play, as we commentate this game.
Taeja looks like he's poised to take a 5th base. Violet is kind of lucky to be hanging on to his 5th base there. The hatchery very, very hurt and bleeding. Both players cranking out upgrades like crazy. Violet continuing with the Roach Hydra Viper composition. Taeja adding in tanks, Hellbats, trying to figure out the perfect mix of factory units to supplement his Bioforce.
All right, looks like Taeja is going to be aggressive again. He knows how low that hatchery is, desperately wants to snipe it, but going to back away. The concave too good there from Violet. Tank from the high ground being a little bit annoying, but keep in mind, abduct is able to happen. And we're about to see it right now. The Viper snagging the tank, reaching it over to the Hydra. The tank went under the creep as it was pulled. That was pretty interesting. The Vipers need not to overextend. Blinding Cloud going down.
Definitely a little bit of an interesting positional gamble here, or positioning maneuvering going on here. Neither player willing to really commit because on the low ground, Violet has a great concave if Taeja goes too far down. But of course, he can't charge up the ramp himself. Taeja moves down.
Taeja's going to try it. There goes the Blinding Cloud onto the Marines Marauders. Hydra's doing a ridiculous amount of DPS. Pretty much the best concave possible here from Violet, and just like that, Taeja loses the majority of his army, and Violet's going to go on to the offensive in theory, but Hydras can be very slow indeed, so it looks like he is going to back away, waiting for additional Roaches, waiting for additional Hydras, but that engagement went perfectly for Violet. Thankfully for Taeja, though, he kept those medevacs alive, which is very important. They're like your infestors. The energy is what's important. As long as you keep them alive, they reaccumulate that energy, and they can be effective the entire game. And now we're seeing a double drop here. Axlav, our skills are going to be demanded here as we try to catch this all.
The one drop trying to pick off creep at the top. There's another medevac maneuvering around the bottom of the map. Taeja's going to keep the rest of his army on defensive, of course. Does not want to be attacked right now as he's trying to reproduce. A lot of production from Taeja is going down. The medevac from the top just clearing creep. Oh, look at this Violet all over this medevac on the bottom here. A small force moving to intercept it, but wait! Violet's unit stop, and the dropship gets into the bottom right location. Hellbat's doing significant damage, but Violet's there in time before too much goes down.
Nice pulled multi-pronged harassment here from Taeja, swinging another medevac into his opponent's main base, but there are Hydras, are Roaches there, and the medevac should get out of there alive. Just needs to put down those afterburners, and he's out of there. 16 HP on that medevac, but more importantly, buying himself time to get himself back up to that ideal unit composition. Meanwhile, Violet making that transition into Ultras, which I found can be pretty tricky in Heart of the Storm considering the upgrades. It's kind of a reset because you're not going to be upgrading your melee attacks when you're going for Hydras and Roaches, so Violet having to start from ground zero there, researching melee attacks level 1.
Violet trying to put some pressure on top left. Planetary Fortress says, no, leave me alone. Taeja now with 5 factories of production can replenish his mech forces very, very fast. Both the tanks and the Hellenes. Also adding 2 Ghost Academies, so we could see some nukes coming in action here. Violet's coming on the low ground. He's going to take the fight. Blinding Clouds excellently used there. The tanks are pretty much purely useless in the situation, and the Bio's trying to handle the Roach Hydra alone.
Yeah, the tank's not getting any shots off at all due to that Blinding Cloud. It's finally going to wear away, but is it too little, too late? Violet's surging forward, going to have to back off as the tank's starting to whittle away at the Hydras. But what's important here is that production tab. We got 8 Ultras in production here from Violet. +1 is about to finish, plus chitinous plating about halfway done as well. And more importantly, I'm not sure if Taeja has recognized this transition, but he's already making 3 Marauders at a time, so it's going to come down to micro, I feel.
It really is. I mean, use of Blinding Cloud is so important with Ultras. Of course, the one thing that's going to trouble Violet, as you mentioned, was upgrades. He only has 1 melee attack. The armor's more important. He does have plenty of that, though. Taeja is going to do some more drops along the bottom, trying to keep his opponent on the defensive while he can get more command centers, more nuclear weapons up, and progress to that really scary Terran super late game situation.
Attacking with those Marines and Marauders to his opponent's bottom right-hand side location. Queen transfusing the Hydra, and the Queen will stay alive as well. The medevac very low in health, 2 HP. I'm a little bit surprised Violet hasn't started making a bit more spore crawlers at his bases, but he doesn't have the most minerals in the world, so that could be a reason why it's every single one of his minerals to create those units. Queen going to get taken down at the bottom, and this drop is going to start doing a decent amount of damage.
Very, very annoying little drop there. That medevac just will not die. In fact, one Marauder doesn't quite make it into the drip. But he does see the Ultras. He's starting to add in some Widow Mines to his composition, which I think are very, very powerful against Ultras. He doesn't quite yet have that Drilling Claws upgrade, though. So you have to be pretty much pre-burrowed before the battle to really make use of them. Without the upgrade, it's very hard to get them in the ground mid-battle.
All right, we have 2 nukes in production here from Taeja, And he's going to start reacting to this composition from Violet. So I feel like the window here for Violet is getting limited. He needs to make this work very soon. It hasn't yet started on the +2 melee attack upgrades. Has the 5 for the Ultras, but Violet's going to go for coming forward with the Ultras and the Hydras. A stim going down here from Taeja. There goes the Blinding Cloud onto the tanks and the Bio. The Ultras trying to get as much damage done as possible. More Blinding Clouds onto the Terran army, and Violet is still ahead in supply, 198 to 168. Taeja is on the run. Does he have what it takes to deal with this composition?
Oh, the Widow Mines are all just hanging out unburrowed there at the bottom side. The Blinding Cloud being used against the Planetary, so it can't shoot very well. And the Planetary goes down, but there's a significant Bio army across the top, cutting backwards, taking out the Ultras. So many Hydras are still alive, though.
Such a tense moment. If Taeja had a few more units, I feel like he could deal with this no problem whatsoever. And you mentioned the Widow Mines. I'm not sure where exactly they are.
They were all taken out. They were
just taken out there.
Yeah,
okay.
they were just hanging out in unburrowed mode.
Imagine
really,
if they were burrowed.
Yeah, it definitely could have changed the game there. That one tank on the high ground kind of flanked the Zerg army, got 9 kills there.
What is he doing?
I don't know. He was just like sniping all the Hydras from the back. Like
Violet's like, where is he?
Who would ever think a tank would get behind enemy lines and play the sniper role? Only Taeja can pull that one off. He's replenishing though. I mean, yes, he lost the Planetary, but he had another command center ready to go. Now it's transforming into Planetary mode. Violet's trying to keep on the pressure. He knows if he lets that Planetary reform, all of a sudden he's back to square one, and everything he gained with that last battle is lost. And look at how fast Taeja can repopulate. Taeja is back up to 170 food already, which is something that is very, very hard for a Terran player to do. But this late in the game, he has so much production. As long as he has the money to use it, he can reproduce very quickly.
All right, Violet needs to try to take advantage of any timing he could potentially have before the Planetary finishes, before his opponent is maxed. But Taeja, I feel like he's doing all the right things, even adding on Drilling Claws, mixing in more Widow Mines. And Violet trying to figure out what he wants to do here, getting all of the energy back onto his Vipers, using that Consume ability. Coming forward here, Taeja is going to be on the run, hasn't stimmed just yet. The Medivac is going to start healing up those stimmed units. The tank's taking shots from the back. There goes the Blinding Clouds there from Violet, but does he have enough? Taeja being very cost efficient here with a brilliant concave on those Marines and Marauders, and all of a sudden he's going to have a supply lead temporarily, but Violet's still trying to make it work. He's not going to have enough. Violet forced to back away, and Taeja getting a lot of damage done with this Bio army.
That concave was so beautiful by Taeja, so important that he put the Bio in the front, forced the Blinding Clouds out early, so that by the time the battle got to where siege tanks were, there was no Blinding Clouds left to be put into siege tanks, and we saw how fast that Hydra's back rank evaporated under that siege tank fire. And without that DPS behind him, the Zerg army is much weaker. Now pushing forward with plenty of Widow Mine siege tanks and Bioforce. Taeja's coming in here. Violet's can repop an Ultranist, but there's enough. Yeah, there's enough Widow Mines.
He has to GG.
There's no way.
Yeah, Violet didn't have a ridiculous amount of resources either. Of course, Taeja very, prioritizing the drops, making sure he was harassing his opponent all game long. And then, it came down to that final battle where on Daybreak, as a Zerg player, you really have to pick your battles. If you're going to engage up the middle, your opponent could just set up a ridiculous concave and should be ridiculously cost efficient, which is exactly what Taeja ended up doing there. And you're like, okay, what are the other options? I guess try to come in from 3 different locations, but that can be very hard to plan out. And if your opponent decides to try to engage through one of those avenues, you're all of a sudden finding yourself facing like a 1 versus 3 or 1 versus 3 situation where a third of your army is facing off against your opponent's entire main army. So Violet went to those Ultras pretty fast, tried to make that composition with the Hydras and Vipers work, but I feel like Taeja's his overall play was just too good.
Very, very solid play by Taeja from everything like you mentioned. The positioning was so key there.
Yes.
He really knew how to control all those units. I was a little worried that he wouldn't really know how to utilize the Hellbats and the Widow Mines quite as much with all of his practice he's put into the GSL and the Pro League and Wings of Liberty, but he seemed to really understand those units very, very well, especially the Hellbats. You got to make a lot of those because they're your buffer.
Yeah.
With Blinding Cloud, the way it works is that you basically have to back out of it, and while you're backing out of it, they're getting free shots on you. And the Terran army is so frail that you need these new beefy Hellbat units, so when they're getting free shots, you have something that's dying that's not that important. It's very easy to replace.
Do you think there's any merit to utilizing fungal growth with the Viper Blinding Cloud?
It could be very strong, of course. It's so much of a gas cost.
Yeah, it's a huge gas investment. Very interesting game there, and Taeja showing that he is appropriating a lot of time into the game of Heart of the Storm. He's up 2-0 against Violet. If he wins one more game, he gets an all-expenses paid trip to the Winter Championship event in Dallas, Texas. Guys, don't go anywhere. Game 3 coming up.